Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic hypersonic.
Positronic hypersonic.
Positronic hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk to you about the Daredevil Born Again season finale. The episode was called Straight to Hell. And as it starts, it's a year before Matt was shot when he stepped in front of Fisk to save his life. And Vanessa is arranging to have Bullseye released from prison. In doing so, she also stops him from taking his medication. And it's all to get him to kill a random thief and Foggy to avoid the thief exposing her criminal activity to the courts with Foggy's help. Back to the present, Matt wakes up in the hospital and for a moment thinks he's with Karen, but then realizes that he's with Heather, before telling her about Vanessa having had Foggy killed and asking to see the file on Foggy's last case. Elsewhere, Fisk tells Vanessa they're now in a position to run a billion-dollar criminal empire before instructing his people and the police to go beyond the law to get Bullseye, and suggesting to Buck that Matt dying of his wounds as a hero would be beneficial, after which he tells his chief of staff to send home anyone not 100% on board and to send an electric company representative to his office. The police chief then approaches Fisk's chief of staff to get her help with handling Fisk's rogue actions, and she agrees to help. Meanwhile, Buck moves in on Matt as the power is cut citywide, only to find that Matt went out a window, which he did to go home, where he finds Frank waiting for him to help him get out of the city. In short order, Fisk's men arrive at Matt's, sporting Frank's Punisher symbol, and blood and guts go everywhere as Daredevil and Punisher have at them. In the aftermath, they figure out which cop killed White Tiger, and argue over whether or not they should kill him, before Daredevil realizes that a grenade's been thrown into his place, and he and Frank leap off the balcony, landing on a car before the grenade explodes. As they're walking away from the scene of their rough landing, Karen shows up to give them a ride, and Matt tells her about Vanessa killing Foggy. We also find out that it was Karen who called Frank in to help Matt. Fisk puts the screws to the city council to support his doings using blackmail, as the city descends into chaos in the darkness, and at least one cop murders a looter before covering his face with his own hat and calling him a masked vigilante. Matt and Karen go through files while skirting the issue of their feelings for each other. They discover that Red Hook, the area that Fisk wants to develop, is a sovereign entity, not subject to the laws of New York or, for that matter, the United States, based on an old legal decree of some kind, which Vanessa had used for her illegal yet unprosecutable activity for a long time, and surmised that the Fisks intend to go hog wild with all kinds of crime there. Elsewhere, Frank hears some task force activity on a scanner and goes to interrupt it, only to get overwhelmed by them before they ask him to join them. Fisk's chief of staff rats out the police chief, who Fisk takes to a plastic-draped kill site and pops his head with his bare hands in front of some cops as Frank gets beat by the task force. Matt and Karen decide that they need an army to stop Fisk. Fisk asks Heather to be his commissioner of mental health for the city as the power comes back on, and she agrees before he addresses the city, telling the populace a huge bunch of lies about what happened the night before, as well as that he's instituting martial law. Matt tells Karen he lost his way and let the darkness in when Foggy died, and Karen says she still believes in him, just as Foggy did, before Matt meets with a handful of good cops and his legal co-workers. Fisk has dinner in his dungeon with Vanessa, where he's holding several people, including Frank and members of the city council, in numerous cells. The episode ends with Frank talking to a cop that's guarding him named Anthony, and gets him to come over to his cell under the ruse of wanting to shake his hand, and of course, pulls him in and starts hurting his arm as step one in what will apparently be his escape. And that's where the episode and the season ended. So I found this episode to be very good, of much higher quality than a lot of the episodes this season. It was very intense, like a good thriller, you know? Watching Fisk go hog wild and basically shut down the city, shut down the bridges, shut down the tunnels, shut down the power to create chaos, which he could then use as a pretext for instituting martial law. Because, of course, he blamed the power outage on criminals. He doesn't tell the populace that he took the power out. And watching him systematically just take full control of the city and wipe out or imprison anyone that had any level of power whatsoever that they could have used to stop him was just terrifying and exhilarating to watch him go hog wild, as I said earlier, in order to become basically Mayor Kingpin. So I really enjoyed that. The level of blood and guts in this episode was something to behold. It was awesome. And, that includes the combat. The combat sequences were really, really well done. The icing on that cake had to have been watching Kingpin pop the police commissioner's head, basically. It was crazy. We've seen him do that before, of course, but they didn't show the blood and guts, I don't think, on the Netflix show. Anyway, that was crazy. And another thing that made this episode great was Karen. Karen was so great in the Netflix show, along with Foggy. He and she were the heart of that show. I think I'm a little partial to Karen in that dynamic because, I'm a guy and she's a hot woman. But having her back just added a whole ton of heart to the show and this episode. So it was great to see her. And part of that was her interaction with Frank because, we always knew that she cared for Matt and Matt cared for her. And like I say, they flirt with that in this episode. But she really cares for Frank, and I think in a different way. And I think he cares for her, but I'm not sure exactly how, but it's evident that he cares for her. And so that was cool to see again. And another thing that made the episode great, if we're talking about the presence of characters, was the presence of Frank Castle, the Punisher. John Barenthal has been nailing the Punisher role on this show. I don't remember liking him that much as the Punisher on his own Punisher show, but in this, he just knocks it out of the park. He nails it. He's really, really great as Frank Castle and the Punisher on this show. In fact, I don't think he was that good on the original Daredevil show, although I did like him on that show. Anyway, either way, he just totally nails it in Daredevil Born Again in both of the episodes that he was in. And it just added so much emotional weight to this finale. It was just really, really great. Of course, Vincent D'Onofrio is fantastic. And, Charlie Cox, of course, was awesome as usual. So I just really, really liked this episode. And, again, more so than I've liked some of the other episodes in this season. This season, I think, was hit and miss with the episodes. There were, a few really good ones, and there were some that were like, okay, that was an episode of TV, okay. But there were a few jewels during the season, and this was absolutely one of them. And at this point, I couldn't be looking forward to season 2 more than I am right now because there's supposed to be more Karen in it, for one thing. And we're supposed to get Foggy back as well. I'm not sure in what capacity, but it'll be good to see him. I'm sure we're going to get more Frank Castle, so that's going to be good. One thing I'd love to see next season that if they do it, I'll be surprised that they didn't hint at it in the end of this episode, but it's a long shot that they're going to do it, so I don't expect to see it, which would explain why they didn't foreshadow it. But what I would love to see next season is now that Matt and Karen have acknowledged that they need an army to beat Fisk, how great would it be if they called in Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Jessica Jones, and She-Hulk? If I'm Matt and I've just come to the conclusion that I need an army to take out Fisk, the first call I'm making is to Jennifer Walters, She-Hulk. The first call. And then I'm calling Luke Cage and Iron Fist and Jessica Damn Jones. So that would be great to see. The flip side of that is, if we don't see it, which is more likely, it's more likely that we won't, it'll kind of be a negative in that what sense does it make for him to realize that he needs an army and then not call these really powerful people that he knows, right? That wouldn't make any sense. So it's kind of going to suck if they don't do it, It's not one of those things where it'll be cool if they do it, but if they don't do it, no biggie. It's one of those things where it would be cool if they do it, and if they don't do it, it's going to be dumb that they didn't do it. So I'm setting myself up for disappointment on that one because I don't think they're going to bring in any of those characters. They already said they don't want to do the Defenders, which means they'd be going back on that if they called in Iron Fist, Luke Cage, and Jessica Jones. And, I don't think they're going to do She-Hulk either because it just, the She-Hulk show didn't do well, and so I doubt that they're going to do it. So I'm setting myself up for disappointment on that, and if they don't do it, which is the most likely scenario, I will be criticizing them for it come season 2. Anyway, that's really all I have to say about the season finale and the entire season of Daredevil Born Again. So I'm going to get out of here. I'll be back with another video soon. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.